You had my love and I gave you all my trust, so you can't hurt me. And if somehow you knew that your love would be untrue, would you lie to me?
There is something going on in the woods of Wisconsin. It isn't Bigfoot, but it is a mysterious beast, and enough people have seen it to know it exists. What is it?
Take this story here. It says there's a wolf man hanging around Elkhorn, Wisconsin, just off of Bray Rd. Bray Rd is about 2 miles long, winding between the farms east of Elkhorn.
I told my mom I thought I saw a werewolf, and my mom believed me.
I was walking along a good probably 7 to 10 seconds before it had turned its head.
That thing, that was no dog. That was too big to be a dog. That thing was bigger than me.
Many people don't know that Wisconsin has most of the animal-shaped ancient effigy mounds in the world, right here in our state. And the ones that are shaped with a long tail that are actually called water spirits by the Native Americans, I found that a map of those localities overlaps almost exactly with hotspots of man-wolf sightings.
Like Doris Gibson, who'd seen it on Halloween night 1991. Driving down Bray Rd, she had gotten out of her car when she thought she had hit an animal.
It was foggy out and I was a little bit afraid. And this big thing come just like trucking, you know? Just trucking down the road at me, man. I looked at it and I'm like, ah! And I ran, I got back in the car. You know, and before I peeled off, that thing scratched the back of the car.
It happened Halloween. Halloween is when the night the gal killed my cat out here in the road. And that's the night she claimed she saw a werewolf. She pulled off to the side of the road and got out, and that's where she claimed she saw a werewolf coming up on her car and scratch her car, and it's just hard to believe.
Just said it's a big animal, and it's upset. It's really upset.
If werewolves do exist, this is probably a werewolf.
In 1991-92, I was a reporter for an area newspaper, and it came to my attention that people around the small city of Elkhorn, Wisconsin, were beginning to report to our county animal control officer that they were seeing a creature that they could best describe as a werewolf. When I went around to talk to these people, they seemed like good, ordinary, honest citizens. They ranged from junior high students to farmers to elderly people, and it's remained that way to this day.
In her 17 years of hunting down the mysterious beast, Linda has collected over 400 accounts of sightings throughout Wisconsin.
The reports of its appearance are remarkably consistent. Everybody estimates a height between 5 to 7 feet tall, covered with very shaggy fur, a long, sharp muzzle with fangs and very prominent teeth, and often doing things that an ordinary creature wouldn't do. It uses its paws to hold chunks of raw meat. They've described maggoty roadkill. And most startlingly, it uses its hind legs to walk around or run.
It might be some kind of natural wolf-wolf hybrid that has adapted to run or walk on its hind legs when it suits its purposes for some reason.
Whatever the cause, by the 1980s, Wisconsin was in the midst of a flurry of reports about a bizarre wolfman beast.
This woman who manages a tavern in Elkhorn.
Never. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like it since or before. There's something else.
She went by the pseudonym of Barbara Holt in a local newspaper and showed up with that same name in the tabloid. Her real name is Lori Andreezy. Her case is the one referred to in the grisly but actually accurate tabloid headline.
I saw a thing. I thought it was a human being at first on the side of the road. So I slowed down to look, and it was hair covered. It had pointy ears, and I drove by real slow, and he was just right on the side of the road, so I got a really good look at him. And he was brown and silver-colored hair. And he was kneeling. That's why I thought it was a human being, because he was kneeling. And when I looked at him, I could tell he was eating roadkill, and he had his paws up like this, like he had elbows. Most animals would get spooked, but this one just didn't get spooked at all. He just looked at me, and he had glowing eyes and very long claws. And I'd say just by looking at him, he was probably the size of an average man.
But it didn't look like his picture.
Not at all. The picture itself is ridiculous. Keeping Elkhorn people locked in their homes, that's ridiculous. Nobody's locked in their homes. So they made it sound very dramatic, like this thing was out killing people. And it, you know, it's, as far as anyone knows, it's never hurt anybody.
Approximately 1 o'clock in the morning, I was contracted by the DNR at the time to pick up the roadkill deer alongside the road. It was on Holy Hill Road. I pulled right on over, and I got out, lifted up the deer, threw it in the back of the truck. I went back into the cab. I had my beacon light on. There were no other cars in sight. I sat down and started to do the paperwork, and I felt the truck shake. At first I thought it was the wind until it shook a second time and it was a little bit more vigorous. When I looked in the rearview mirror, what I saw was a larger black hairy creature. Looked like it was actually reaching into the back end of the truck. It looked like it was a body of a bear, but the head was a larger looking type of wolf head with a large muzzle on it, a longer muzzle, and it had pointy ears. At first, it didn't quite hit me right off the bat what it was that I was seeing. It startled me, but the minute I got a closer or a clearer look at it after a couple seconds, all I knew is that it was not something I've ever seen before. And I've seen pretty much, I thought, every type of animal that there was inside of the state of Wisconsin until that night. I've spent a lot of time in the woods and seen a lot of crazy things. This beats all of it by a long shot. Back in 2006, I was contracted to pick up the dead deer carcasses along the roadways throughout the state. There was no precipitation. It was just a really nice, cool evening. While I was driving, and I came across a small deer carcass. It was a small 80-pound doe, so I threw down the tailgate, picked up the deer and tossed it into the back on top of the ATV ramp. And I hopped back into my cab, got the clipboard out and started filling out the paperwork.
What had been a quiet night was about to receive a jolt.
At first, when the truck shook, I thought it was the wind. So I ignored it the first time, started filling out the paperwork again.
When the truck rocked again, it couldn't be ignored.
I really felt like something heavy got into the back end of the truck. And that's where I saw the creature. The whole entire creature was about 7 feet tall, looked like basically a large wolf head on top of a bear's body. This was not a bear.
Then, it made a move toward the front of the truck.
It scared the dickens out of me. I became panicked and I realized I just needed to get out of there. It came down to a choice of fight or flight, and I chose the flight.
When I first saw it, it was just on this little rise just to the south of that stone pile. And
Bray owns a farm west of where Hubbard lives. He says he saw something in the fall of 1989.
It had a rough coat, a lot of long hair. It seemed to be real large and strong through the front end. And it just moved with kind of an unusual gait and it just didn't act like a normal dog. I went out, and walked around, and it left an unusually large footprint. That was the one thing that surprised me the most, was the size of the print. I thought it was some kind of a dog, but it didn't really look like a shepherd, but that was the type dog it was.
He said it was too large to be a wolf. It had a terribly unkempt look to its fur, wild, not normal.
Elaine Bushman was describing what her husband Robert had witnessed in 1991. The Bushmans live in St. Nazian and were just passing through town when Robert spied the creature. They knew nothing of the beastly tales that haunted Elkhorn.
I've never seen anything that would be dirty enough and for some reason or other scary enough to make you feel the hair lift up on your arms, you know?
I don't doubt that they may have seen something or a shadow or, you know, at night your mind plays tricks with your eyes. Who knows what may be going on or what caused this action or what they did possibly see, but there is no animal or no
anything.
Nothing whatsoever.
And if somehow you knew that your love would be untrue, would you lie to me?